Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Well, we have 60 some odd days until the midterms, which is in today's political world not long at all. Not long at all. Most people have made up their mind, made their decision on their candidate, on their dog in the race, if you will. But some of us are still sitting on the fence. And as you know, here at Soluble, we're always looking for the solution. We think that is the best way forward for America to deal with the truth in order to find a solution for more government or bipartisanship, cooperation. So, that's what we're basing our existence, our coming into the world of podcasting upon. We're always looking for the solution. And, we welcome feedback. We welcome any comment. We welcome any eye-opening enlightenment that someone may bring to the table as far as answers, solutions, what have you. So, as I said, here we are. The candidates are, far as on the right, we have candidates like Herschel Walker, Doug Mastriano for the governorship of Pennsylvania, J.D. Vance. He's in Ohio running for a seat on the Senate or Congress. I'm not really sure. I beg your pardon there. Dr. Oz, of course, he's in Pennsylvania. Looking for an upset in one of the open seats. On the left, you have candidates like Val Demings, Tim Ryan, Mr. Fetterman in Pennsylvania. We wish him a speedy recovery from the stroke that he suffered here a couple of months ago or whatever. So there you have it, starting on the right and starting on the left. A lot of difference in opinion there, a lot of difference in what the country should be doing and in which direction the country should be heading based on the leaders in governorship. Now, we can very well pretty much absorb what Make America Great Again means now in the eyes of the former president. This Make America Great Again idea is one of tearing down and rebuilding. And it tears down through racial hate, bigotry, and things of that nature. It's basically, suppressing minorities as you were. It's basically suppressing so-called minorities and promoting Caucasians over all other races in the melting pot. This is pretty much what Make America Great Again blueprint is for making America great. To tear down and then rebuild. Rebuild pretty much in an order, back to an order of what it was during the days of the founders. And you have a party that's went totally rogue right. From the time of the campaign way back in 2016, the former president was denounced. He was called out as being unfit to be president, not qualified to be president by the likes of Senator Cruz, Senator Graham. A lot of these Senate candidates spoke out and said, this former president was by no means qualified. But yet when he made it into the Oval Office, he could do no wrong. They rallied to his defense. You would have thought that this was a tale of two senators, a tale of two statements, because from the campaign trail to the Oval Office, it was amazing how, he was downcast and put out there as being unfit, not qualified. And then as soon as he wins the election, it's, Let's hold hands together and sing Kumbaya. So, you know, as I said in my last podcast, that's where we're at. Do we want a Republican majority? We'll surely investigate. And you as the voter have to decide, you know, if that's not what you want, you definitely have to use your power at the ballot box. Because that's where they're at. That's where they're at with a victory in November. That's where they're starting out at. Investigations. No legislation. No legislation to solve meaningful problems like climate change, gun violence in America, a woman's right to choose, renewable energy. Nothing on that. No legislation for these things, which are very meaningful for America. And it keeps us as the front runners in the front of cutting edge technology, innovation to bring ideas to other countries that'll help enlighten them as to how to change the course of climate change. For example, just one example. But this is what, this is the meaningful legislation, as I said, that we need, that right now we so desperately need. From the campaign of 2016 to now, look at what we've gotten from the right. Look at what we gotten. We were stirred up. A time of a lot of civil unrest in America. Negroes in America having the cops called out on them for barbecuing, just doing simple, innocent things like little kids selling lemonade or water. Negroes having the police called out because they didn't look like they belonged when it was actually their own apartment or their own house. And so picture that, imagine that, how one can have the police called out on because they don't look like they belong. When you own a building or when you live at a certain residence, what is that look in the world of Trumpism? What is that look? And we pretty much know what it is. The look is Caucasian, well, neatly trimmed and groomed, for example. Whether he has a millionaire bank account or not, he has the look, which is the look of Caucasian, blonde hair, blue eyes, so to speak. So, that's the time that we were in during the Make America a Great movement, Make America Great Again movement. It was a time of, as I said before, tearing down to build back up again. This was, now we know the blueprint for making America great again. And it caused a lot of civil unrest. So, as I said, we're 60 days out. And the MAGA rights and Trumpism is still relevant because of the havoc that he still seems to be wreaking today with this latest episode with the handling of classified material. Now, keep in mind, this is a president who loves this country. Who loves this country. Now, a person can make their mouth say anything. And as we know, action does speak louder than words. So here we have it, a president who loves his country, but violates all protocols, trying to, ride on the edge of the law, skirt the law in whatever ways that he can. Top secret, classified material. And now, for a president who loves his country, he's trying to, by all means, buck this investigation. When we all can see and know that he's played fast and loose with some of America's most deadliest, highly classified secrets. He's played fast and loose with them. So he wants to now, instead of letting the FBI do their job, and for a man that loves this country, he wants to have a special master appointed. And we don't know what we pretty much know that this is from his legal advisors. This is not coming from 45 himself out of his own brain. He's listening to his legal team, and now he wants to have a special master appointed when he's done wrong. He's done wrong. I mean, he was asked, had all relevant documents been turned over, and the answer was yes. We've turned everything over. Now, if that wasn't the case, and it's apparent that it's found to be that it wasn't the case, for a president that loves this country, a previous president that really loves this country, you have to ask yourself why. Why would you do everything to not let things go smoothly? Turn over the documents. I made a mistake. We were in error. Something along those lines. Those are, some of the statements or statements along those lines of what we think we would be hearing from a person that loves this country, not by trying everything he can to defy it. So, we put him in the minority before. We put them in the minority in 2020, even though they're in denial. They're walking around with blinders on. They're following the lies of the former president to say that there was, something about the election that was rigged. But, honest, everyday Americans know that they're in the minority. They're, as I've said before, they're 70 some odd million strong, but they're in the minority, or they were in the election of November 2020. Now, in order to keep them there, what we have to do. We have to go out with the same numbers, the same force. Voting in mass. Voting in mass will assure that we vote them out again, that we get them out again. That's what voting in mass will do, and that's what we need to do. Democracy is on the line here. Unless you want to go back to a place in time, as I aforementioned, of just having the police called out on you for anything. Muslims are not allowed in the country, just a blanket order for all Muslims, even though, some of America's best spies, best informants, to let them know what's going on in the world of Al Qaeda, in the world of the Taliban. Some of America's best spies that are giving them the best information to keep everybody safe are actually Muslims. So, it kind of shows just how little this president knows about forming connections with foreign allies. In this president's world, in this president's mind, every foreigner is an adversary. And that's a small-minded person. That's a person who is not qualified to be the leader of the free world, because he can only see bad in all things foreign, in all people foreign. He can only see bad. He can only see negative. The glass is always half empty as far as foreigners in the former president's eyes. And that's not a well-rounded leader that we should be looking for, that can see the bad and good in any race, in particular of people or person, especially when it comes to secrets, gaining knowledge about our foreign adversaries. It's a critical time now. Between in the Georgia race, you have in one of the Senate races there, you have Herschel Walker going up against Raphael Warnock for a seat there in Georgia. You see the difference between the two candidates. As I've said before, and this is our sole belief here at Soluble, we welcome any comments, anything to the contrary, any feelings or beliefs to the contrary. But our position here at Soluble is that Herschel Walker doesn't know beans about politics. This is a Trump acolyte who sounds just like him. When the Inflation Reduction Act came out a couple of weeks ago, one of the things he can draw out as far as negative is something in the legislation that talked about planting trees in so many places every so often. However many, that scientific experts have chimed in on this legislation. scientific experts, unlike in the Trump era, where he knows more about climate change than the scientists. President Biden and the Biden administration has actually let scientific experts chime in, give their input on how to bring about efforts to reduce the CO2 that we're putting into the air. So obviously, the experts had a suggestion to plant trees in probably strategically referenced areas in order to, combat CO2 levels. And the best that Herschel can do is come out and say, what do we need more trees for? This is how much in the dark he is. And if you notice, and I'm gonna go into a few more of the candidates, this all is coming from the world of Trumpism. It sounds like something that the former president would say. An uninformed president. A president that thinks he knows more than the scientific experts when actually he don't know anything in the whole scheme of things. But this is ego. This is bravado. This is misogyny that this former president was right with. So that's Herschel's stance as far as climate change. As I said, it's evident. It's evident by his statements. He's, as they're saying, about one of the Democratic candidates here in Florida, he is definitely a radical rubber stamp for the former president. You have Mastriano. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's running for the governorship there in Pennsylvania. There have been reports out now here that, there's some photos of him that have surfaced from some time going by with him in, a Confederate uniform, a Civil War era Confederate uniform. And as I told you, this is on the ballot. So, we stated it here at Soluble. We stated it that's how we feel, because we're gonna deal with the truth, no matter how much it hurts. And we hold ourselves to the high standard of truthfulness here on this broadcast. So, if we're wrong, we're ready to be called out. If we're wrong, we're ready to be called out to be made right. But here it is, Mastriano. Pictures have surfaced, or resurfaced or whatever, of him in Confederate garb during some ceremony, some gathering, from an event that he was hosting or that he was attending. And as I said before, I found out about this, that I had already stated here, that here at Soluble, we feel like either we're going to, keep going towards being the United States of America after the midterm elections, or there's a serious threat that we will become held hostage by the Republican Party being in the majority, and we will become slowly evolve into the Confederate States of America. Because a lot of people on the right are already talking about civil war, bringing about unrest. And if you notice, a lot of times when I'm looking at when I'm looking at these commercial advertisements, these campaign commercials on TV, one of the words that I hear the Republicans use the most is that they will fight for this and they will fight for that. There's a lot of power in words. And as I said, that's one of the words that I hear a lot in their commercials. He will fight for you. He will fight for this. He will fight for that. So is this a party of violence? Because that's the only word that stands out there that they can think of when it comes to how they will work on your behalf when they get to Washington. We don't need, or do we need? It depends on which way one sees it. Do we need a politician who will go to Washington and fight for something? Or, being an intellectual, civilized nation, will we like a candidate who wins a seat or wins out in an election and will go to Washington and crusade? Who will go to Washington and roll up his sleeves and work? Get busy doing work for the people, handling the people's business. But as I said, with the Republicans, that's what I've noticed in their campaign ads, one of the main words they like to use is that they will go to Washington, they will fight. Why not a good lively debate? Why not, bring out the whiteboard and bring, good common sense legislation to the floor and just use debate and negotiation. There's no fight going on in the halls of power. This is a time for debate, for negotiation, for bipartisanship. So, there is a difference there. I'm studying the Democratic ads. I'm seeing more of a tendency of a candidate that will go to Washington, D.C. and work hard for you, will get busy handling the business of the people. And that's where we're at. So you have to look at the little subtle things, the things that are being said in the campaign commercials. So look for that. In the vast majority of Republican campaign commercials, you're going to hear the word fight when it's no need for that. We fight for things on the battlefield when freedom is on the line, when democracy is on the line. We fight when people are being unjustly oppressed somewhere in the world. But here in our own halls of government, do we really want to send a candidate to Washington, D.C. out of everything that's going on right now? What's happened in the past with the insurrection, with all the heated political rhetoric that's already going on now? Do we really want to send candidates who are supposed to go and handle the business of the people? Do we really want candidates that are going to go to Washington, D.C. and fight? Fight who? Fight what? Just go. If you're elected, why can't you look at it just going to Washington, D.C. to do your job, to work, to crusade, to advocate? We will go to Washington, we will advocate on your behalf. We will go to Washington, we will roll up our sleeve and work hard for you. We will go to Washington, D.C., and we will begin to study up on whatever it takes to make sure that the business of the people is done, whether those people are fall on the right or on the left. But that's it. That's it. Take a long look at that. Listen carefully to what they're saying. Most on the right are ready to go to D.C. and fight. That's real aggressive language. That's really not called for. That's really not called for. And it doesn't by no means make America great. It just pushes us to our political corners. And as we've seen here in the recent past, nothing gets done. Nothing gets solved. No meaningful legislation is brought to the floor to solve everyday problems, to help better the lives of American people with whatever the legislation is, making the Affordable Care Act better. As I said, climate change, clean water, clean air. And by the way, that's one of the things that's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. Could they have had faulty equipment at the water treatment facilities already before the storm? So this is what we need. And it's up to us as the American voters, as the American people, to send these kind of candidates to D.C. So we need to come out hard against the MAGA rights in November, because, as I stated, here in the great state of Florida, that's what we're seeing here. As far as political advertisement from the right, political commercials from the right, they all want to go up and fight, kick people out, fight. And there's no need for that. I mean, if they want to fight, then the best place for them is the military. Maybe they can volunteer for Ukraine to help a free country rid itself of a foreign invader. Maybe they can go over there and do some good for the world. But here in American politics, we don't need it. But as I said, these Trump acolytes are just a replacement. And if they get in office, if they win and get in office, then we're right back to where we were beginning in 2016, 2017. So are we going to put that chapter or that part of history of making America great again? Is that going to go in the history books now as something from the past, or are we as the American voter going to let it rear its ugly head again? This is what's at stake. This is what we're voting for. A party that's going to investigate once they win back power, or a party that's already in power now, trying to put out a good common sense legislation for the American people to combat climate change, to bring the deficit down, to help people earn a better living, to attain or get a piece of that, to get a piece of that American dream. They're constantly trying to come up with legislation. They're constantly bringing things to the floor, whether it passes or not. But they're constantly bringing legislation to the floor. And we're not here to say that every Democratic idea is a great idea. That's not what we're saying. But we can say that they're constantly bringing legislation to the floor, good, bad, or ugly. And it's up to their fellow lawmakers to look at it, find ways to make it better and pass it, or look at it and say, this is not helping the American people. This is not going to be good for America on a whole going down the road into the future. And so we have to veto it, or we have to take it and go back to the drawing board again. That's where we're at, folks. Investigating Hunter Biden, impeaching Joe Biden. These are tit for tat politics. This is tit for tat politics. And you don't know which side of the fence that the Republican Party is on. It depends on which way the wind blows. It depends on if the FBI is investigating the former president or not. They're for law enforcement. But if the law enforcement is investigating the former president, who very well could be breaking the law, then now law enforcement is bad. So we don't know which side of the fence. Where are they at? It depends on which way the wind blows. Where are they? You heard the president himself say it a couple days ago. You can't be pro law enforcement and pro insurrection. So, it's time for the rubber to meet the road. But as I said, if they win back the majority, if we don't go out and vote in mass and rock the vote, then be ready to come out at the beginning of 2023 with a party in power that's ready to investigate. Investigate what, though? Investigate things that have no substance to them. These investigations are only there to tear down an opponent, to poison this opponent in the eyes of the American voter. These investigations are there to make political opponents unelectable. And that's where it begins and ends. That's where it begins and ends. And at the end of the day, what does that do for the average, everyday, ordinary working American? How does that help him or her? So do your homework. Study the Republican playbook. But we have a decision to make as far as where we're going to go and who we're going to be as a country. Are we going to continue to be a leader of the free world? Or will we be a country that starts to go more autocratic and look something like Russia, North Korea, China, maybe? But that's what's at stake now, because we have a party that doesn't want to govern from a position of truth. So, moving on from Mastriano, who donned the Confederate uniform and resurfaced photos from an event from days, weeks, or years gone by. That's the mentality there. That's the belief. Donning the uniform of people or belief that was trading or had traitorous traits as to what, far as what America really stood for. Betrayal of freedom, betrayal of the Constitution. This is what the Confederate States of America sought to do, to undo liberty and justice for all. Give me your tired, poor, and huddled masses. This is what that party, this is what that group of people goals and intentions were, to make America something different than what the founders had intended for it to be, a states' rights party where, we don't want big government in it. We as a state, we want to be able to, do it the way we see fit without big government being there to make sure that things are fair and just. We want to take away a woman's rights. We want to have weapons, semi-automatic weapons, on the streets of our state, whether they're killing children in school, innocent people in a grocery store, or what have you. We want our semi-automatic weapon. So this is the Confederate States of America that we very well could be turned back into if you don't go out and rock the vote. Dr. Oz, he's if I'm not mistaken, he's a Senate candidate for the state of Pennsylvania. Now, before he announced his candidacy, I really, I didn't know Dr. Oz's politics lean towards the right, so far towards the right that, made him a MAGA right as far as the Republican Party goes. So, while I've always admired his medical advice, his medical knowledge, I must say I was somewhat shocked. It didn't cause me to lose respect for who he is as a doctor and his medical profession, his knowledge of what makes the body work good and what makes the body work bad. I still have a great deal of respect for that. But in true fashion of Trumpism, in true Trumpism fashion, one of his campaign staffers or somebody within the campaign, the best that they can come up with as far as making, as far as comments about his political opponent. Nothing about where Mr. Fetterman stands on the issues, what his policy beliefs are on jobs for Pennsylvania, what his policy beliefs are for the environmental good of Pennsylvania, what Fetterman's policies is about policing in Pennsylvania. And we know that Philadelphia is having, they're having a lot of problems right now, but nothing about that. In true fashion of Trumpism, one of the low blows they come out with to say, well, if the man had ever ate a vegetable in his life, he wouldn't have had a stroke. So here, in true Trump fashion, mocking a stroke victim, making fun of someone who's just suffered a life-altering event that very well could have took his life. But in true Trumpism fashion, they struck a low blow towards his opponent's medical condition. This is Trumpism 101 at its best. At its best. So these are the candidates. This is an example of what we're up against in November. All of these people that I'm mentioning, as far as running with the R beside their name, or as being in Republican, they're true Trump acolytes. They're acting just like him. They're sounding just like him. So it's up to us as American voters to send the message once again that it won't be tolerated. It's not welcome in today's politics. It's up to us to send that message by going out strong to the polls and voting. As I said, Miss Hageman, she unseated Congresswoman Cheney here a couple weeks ago. And one of the first things she could do, as far as in victory, not in defeat, but in victory, you would think she would come out and humble herself and be humble in victory. But no, she comes out with a lie, a vicious lie against the congresswoman who I applaud, even though we're of different political stripes, but I very much applaud her for her integrity, for her courage to stand up for the truth against a rogue Republican Party now who would rather support the lie than the truth. But here is Ms. Hageman coming out to say that she never conceded. She never called me and said anything, give me anything congratulatory, or, anything of somewhat of a concession speech to acknowledge that I had won. A total lie. So, it's right there in your face, folks. It's right there in your face. These candidates, even if the president is no longer in the Oval Office, these candidates will take us back to a time of Trumpism. And, it's kind of sad to see that they don't realize that. Well, they do realize it, but they don't seem to care that we just voted that kind of thinking out in 2020. But they're so stuck in it now. And it's evident. It's evident by their actions, by the words that are coming out of their mouth. It's evident that they're so stuck and entrenched in Trumpism that it's hard to shake it off. It's hard to shake it off. So, for the simple fact alone that they don't realize that just less than 2 years, right at 2 years ago, when it comes to the midterms, we just voted this out, and they're too blind, they're too stupid to realize that it's in the minority. So it's going to be up to us as the American voter to remind them once again. Now, once we beat them twice, then that should get the point across. Once we beat them twice, once it's all said and done and the dust has settled on the midterm elections come this November, that should convince them that the age of Trumpism is dead. It's over. Now, if it doesn't, for some reason, for whatever reason, if it doesn't, then we are really living in a dangerous time in this country. To have beaten this party twice, to have defeated Trumpism twice in a presidential election and turn right back around and defeat them again in a midterm election. If they don't see and realize that the age of Trumpism is dead, then we're in serious trouble. We're in serious trouble. Because then we will have one party that's ready to legislate, that's ready to reach across the aisle to say, let's compromise. Let's find the middle ground here. And then you'll have a party on the opposite side of the aisle who, as that hand is reaching out, as that arm is extending to embrace bipartisanship, you'll have a party with their arms folded. Excuse me, continuing to be the party of no. And where will that get us as Americans? So we have to keep the majority. We have to do everything in our power to keep the majority, because the Republican Party in this day and age, at this time, and we're not here to say that this is permanently how it's going to be, but in this day and age, at this time, the Republican Party is gone blind. They've abandoned the truth. They've abandoned American ideals. And even when in their heart of hearts they know that the previous president lost a free and fair election, they cannot or will not begin to change. So beating them twice in two elections, one right behind the other, this should convince them. This should convince them to change their ways. This should convince them to change their ways. You would think that since Trumpism was defeated in 2020 and they lost the House and the Senate, that they would know now. But Republican legislators in the Republican Party right now are rallying behind the MAGA rights. And even though they lost the election of 2020, and as I said, in their heart of hearts, they know this, what they're counting on is historically and traditionally the midterm elections, when a Democratic president is in power, historically and traditionally, the turnout for the midterms has been real weak. It's been real low. So that's what they're banking on with a lot of their assumptions of victory and of taking over and winning back the majority. That's what they're counting on. They're not counting on a message that will resonate and get across to the vast majority of American people so they can win with the majority vote. What they're counting on is based on historical fact that the midterms or the turnout for the midterms has been constantly at a low level. And if they can get their turnout up, they will win with this 70 something odd million. So there it is. There it is. We're going to go back, briefly into something that we've stated before on this soluble podcast. When it comes to sports, when it comes to entertainment, Negroes in America, we're ready participants. We're willing participants. We jump right in. We watch sports. We play sports. We live and breathe, anticipate. We go shop in grocery stores centered around sporting events. We have to have our chips, our dips, our wings. We would like to present a proposition of engaging in politics as a sport. Engaging in politics as a sport. And this sport is actually determines how your everyday life will be in this country. And so for that reason alone, we would encourage Negroes in America to get in the game, to get involved, to try to be a starter in this sport, to try to be a most valuable voter in this sport, to play this sport of politics. And this sport involves quality of life, how you will live, how you will exist, how you will thrive in this country through laws, through legislation. So we encouraging, Negroes to get in the game as if it was a sport of basketball, football, baseball, track and field, or any other thing that we would embrace as far as 40-yard dash times, that intrigues us. Dunks, touchdown celebrations. We enjoy all those things about our favorite sport or sports in general. So, this sport, this thing called politics is a sport that we should look at as the game of life, not a game of points, if you will, but the game of life. And so here tonight, here on Sorry, we're going to once again ask everyone to engage in this sport, in this sport, dealing with the quality of life. Play it to excel in it, play it to be a starter, play it to win. And in order to win, you have to get your candidate across the finish line come election day. And in order to get that candidate across the finish line, you have to go and vote. There's no other way. But get involved with the issues. And it is what it is. I get it because I'm there too. you know, I think I can safely speak for a lot of Negroes in America. We wrestle with the fact that we're a party of total inclusion. And some of these things, they really challenge our faith. They really cause us to wrestle with our faith because, our Democratic Party embraces all walks of life, you know, all walks of life, all genders, um, all sexual beliefs, all sexual orientations. And, it is what it is. As I said, I'm the first and foremost, to wrestle with my faith, to challenge my faith to say, is there a line here? Is there a moral line here that I need to draw as far as my allegiance to the Democratic Party? The party loves to a fault. And that's Soluble's opinion. We know that, there are a lot of people out there that would beg to differ. But from a faith-based point of view, here at Soluble, I feel as though, as I said, I'm wrestling, I'm fighting with my faith a lot on the fact that my party is a party of inclusion for all. But I can still debate with this party. I can pray with this party, if you will, as far as my faith goes. And that's where we are with the Democratic Party. It's a party that embraces all stripes, all walks, and it loves all. It embraces all. That's not a totally bad thing. Versus here you have a party, a states' rights party. And from the time that this terminology was brought about in American politics to now, you know, we have to ask ourselves. We know what it's meant a lot in the past, but in the year of our Lord 2022, what does the state want the right to do as far as the Republican Party is concerned? It's a states' rights party, as I said. So that's the question that we have to ask ourselves when it comes to our thoughts of joining, entertaining any candidate conference, going to any political event where there's a Republican candidate or candidates who are speaking. What does the state want the right to do? That is the question. As a states' rights party, as I said, the Democrats, they embrace all, they love all, they take the whole melting pot, and they say, okay, this is America. This is America. Let's get the best, the best of the best, the best qualified, regardless of race, regardless of gender. Let's get the best qualified. I can work with that. I can work with that. That sounds reasonable. Versus a party that is looking for, first and foremost, the best Caucasian for the job. This is the Republican Party. Not necessarily the best person for the job, the best man or woman for the job. And we see what we got with the previous president. This was the best they could do for the party. They went out and got the best Caucasian for the job. And we see what a disaster it was when there were better qualified so-called minorities. We see what happened there. So that's the contrast. That's the somewhat stark contrast. One party embraces all. It loves all. It takes the whole melting pot in. One party, a states' rights party. Give me the best Caucasians, and then whatever's left over after that, we'll see if we have a place for them. We'll see if we have a position for them to fill. We'll see if we have a job for them to do. So there you are. There you have it. Do you want the best person for the job now here in America, or do you want the best race for the job? That is the choice. That is the Republican Party position. That is the Republican Party position. Plain and simple. This is make America great again. To tear it all down, to tear it down as it is now, and start over from scratch again. This will include a lot of bloodshed, a lot of violence, a lot of what you saw on January the 6th of 2021. This is what Make America Great Again looks like. Innocent people being killed. Police officers kneeling on a suspect's neck until death. People being ran over, ran down in the streets. And by all accounts from the previous president, there were good people on both sides. So that's it, folks. 60-something odd days until the midterms. 60-something odd days until the midterm elections. So, do your own research. We thank you for tuning in, but do your own research also. Here, soluble opposition is you're going to get a Republican majority that only wants to investigate, but to investigate to tear down their political opponent. Then you have a party on the other hand that wants to legislate, trying to legislate new and better laws for the everyday lives of Americans. A party that wins the majority and investigates, or a party that keeps the majority and continues to legislate. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. So the ball's in your court. This party has went, so rogue right that, it's went from red to like a crimson blood, a deep burgundy. What do you get when you go to the darkest shade of red? That's where this party is at now, because the truth doesn't matter. If there's a Republican official or leader that's bribing, it's no big deal. If there's a Republican legislator, senator, congressman, president, or what have you, that's playing fast and loose with top secret classified material, it's no big deal. If there's a president or a political leader, whether it be a senator or a congressman, that's playing fast and loose with women's rights, it's no big deal. If he's accused of rape, he or she, there's no big deal. It's no big deal. If people in the administration or advisors around them don't have a proper security clearance after they've been vetted, it's no big deal. Although all these things that I've just mentioned in the past have been a big deal when it comes to running a sound, ethical government of the people, for the people, by the people. This has always mattered. Violation of the Emoluments Clause. No big deal. Nepotism. No big deal. So the choices are clear there in this decision-making time here in America. We're on the cusp of very important midterms. And as I said, let's look at it as another sport. Negroes in America going, into the 21st century and beyond. We need to look at politics as something that we can get into, for an example, like we do sports, or sport of the mind, or sport of how well is my everyday life going to be. This is not a game, but this is not entertainment, a game of points to declare a victor who, for 1 year holds a championship trophy. We're talking about everyday lives that go on and on beyond just 1 year. And if we get the right turnout, if we can keep our party, the Democratic Party, in power, then we can raise that trophy again. Once we can raise that trophy of victory once again, we can continue to improve the lives of everyday average Americans, which is the role of government. It's to make lives better. It's not to violate protocol, to do everything on the outskirts of what is the norm, to challenge authority, to challenge the way things have been done from administration to administration to administration. And if you notice, when the press shoves a mic in their face, they're ready to run for the hills. They're ready to run for the hills. So, you know, going into these last 60 days, you know, we really need to think about it. We really need to think about it. We don't recognize this, you know, as far as Reaganites, you know, as far as Reaganomics, as far as Ronald Reagan Republicans. We don't recognize this into this today's party, in this today's Republican Party, a party of Trumpism. This is nothing like the Ronald Reagan Republicans that my grandmother knew about. This is a totally different animal now. And this party now seems to say that, well, if we can't win it with free and fair elections, then we'll take it by force. And that's not the American way. It never has been. And as I said, it's a party that puts their stake down and stakes their claim in whatever favorable way that the wind is blowing for them. They love law enforcement. They're pro law enforcement. Blue lives matter. Unless or until the blue lives start to investigate the former president. Then they can get on board with defunding blue lives, or blue lives don't matter. This is a dangerous way of doing things. To move the goalposts to suit your own political interests or needs. To move it whenever it's suitable, favorable, or to let it stay, move it when it's unfavorable, but let it stay in place when it's favorable. Where does this party stand? If Hillary's playing fast and loose with a server, with emails, you know, we need to lock her up. Now, by the same standard, if there's someone on the right playing fast and loose with classified material, top secret material, it's crickets from the Republican side. No chance. No lock him up chance. But it's crooked Hillary Clinton all the day long. This should be an insult to the American voter, no matter where your political beliefs lie, whether you're on the right or the left. This should be an insult. This should be an outrage that this former president has the audacity to form the words in his mouth on a regular basis. Crooked. Crooked. Crooked as the adjective that is used to describe Hillary Rodham Clinton, who, by all accounts, is a woman of the people, for the people. She's trying to do what's right for all. And so, therefore, she's hated. But back to my main point, as I said, it's crooked Hillary Clinton all the day long. How many investigations is this president under right now? They're looking at him in New York. for inflating his taxes when it benefits him and deflating them when it doesn't benefit him. He's being looked at in Georgia for election interference. They're still investigating, trying to get to the bottom of January 6th. He's tried to have the rape allegations. He somehow managed to either suppress it or have it thrown out, or maybe he even reached a settlement with the lady that said that he tricked her in the dressing room into trying on something, and he tried to rape her. Now, as of late, you have the former president playing fast and loose with top secret. This is not just some, ordinary briefing that he got one day. This is top secret, highly classified, very sensitive intelligence that the president is playing fast and loose with. And to show you how wrong and upside down he is, if he knows more about intelligence than CIA officials or the top officials at the Pentagon, why does he need these papers? Because it's all in his head to let him tell it. He knows more. So why do you need to have all this top secret classified information in some loosely guarded storage facility in Mar-a-Lago? But under all these investigations, violating, thumbing his nose at prized institutions, highly esteemed institutions in America that's kept America the leader of the free world as it is now, to just violate and play fast and loose like this is an insult. And it should be to you. So this is just some of the reasons. Or it could be all things combined. It depends on how you look at it. But the president is under investigation after investigation after investigation. And one of the frightening things about it is that when he's caught or when he's called out for a possible violation or a possible breach of law, he becomes defiant. He doubles down. So that's what we have to do come November. That's what we have to do. We have to double down and give them the double defeat from 2020 to 2022. That's where we're at. Let's put out a double defeat for the Republican Party until when, if, or what have you, they will get back to common sense debate, being a Republican Party or a Ronald Reagan Republican, something that we on the left disagree with, but we can recognize. We can reach across the aisle for a Ronald Reagan Republican. We can try to debate. And at the end of the day, try to come up with the best solution we can for everyday American dealing with a Ronald Reagan Republican. But Trumpism and the age of the MAGA right, it seems impossible. It seems impossible. We have our Democratic lawmakers, in office, and we can only believe what they tell us. We can only believe what we're seeing. And as I said before, from the leader of this party, the party of Trump right now, is deny, duck and dodge, delay, discredit, and all this from a man who claims to so much love this country. So 60 something odd days to the midterms, and those are just some examples of your candidates and what the Republican Party is now. We encourage you to, as I've said before, keep a fire lit under our Democratic legislators. We have to make sure they're doing their job. We're going to call them out here at Soluble every chance we get, or anytime that the opportunity calls for it. Opportunity presents itself. If they're filing up, if they're doing something other than what they've said on the campaign trail, we're going to call them out. So we're not just here to, attack the Republican Party. We're going to tell it like it is, no matter what side of the aisle that we stand on, what party we vote with. We here at Soluble, we're Democratic. We vote Democratic. We vote for the Democrats because we feel that that's the best party for us as working class Americans. Not that we have anything against millionaires and billionaires. They've earned their money, rightfully so. But we're with the party from a standpoint of view of everybody paying their fair share. So let's rock the vote. Let's stay tuned in. Let's stay focused. Let's stay ready. The primaries are over. The primaries are over and done. We see who's against who. We see what the slate is for November. Who's running against who. So let's get ready to vote. There may be a shift in belief. There may be a shift in party. But, study it up carefully. Study it up well. Study it up well. But from a point of view here at Soluble, as I've said, if we see a takeover from the right after the midterm elections, look for a lot of investigations, waste of taxpayers' time and money, very little legislation going on to make American lives better for everybody, people of all stripes, people of all races, whether they're immigrants, whether they're Native Americans, or what have you, but to make life better for all of humankind. Join us on Friday. As I said before, our daytime business and our daytime work sometimes interferes, but we're trying to get better, but sometimes we're dealing with customers where things run over. They run beyond the time that we've allowed, but we have to go the extra mile there to keep business thriving and going. But by all means, we intend this Friday to bring about, on that issue day, the subject of crimes against children in America. So until we see you again, this is Soluble signing off. We'd like to thank you for joining us. We encourage you to, bring your thought, your opinion to this podcast as you're tuning in, so we can all get to a clear point, a clear understanding. It's our opinion here at Soluble, but we're always looking for intellectual input that could maybe shed a better light on what we're trying to say or what we're trying to achieve. So until the next time, this is Soluble signing off. We'd like to say thank you for joining us. And until the next time, this is Soluble saying good night. Thank you.